Imagine going to sleep in a world that feels permanent. A world where cities glow under torchlight, where granaries are full, where kings rule from palaces of stone and gold, where trade ships move across the seas like lifelines connecting empires. Now, imagine waking up, and everything is gone. Cities are burning, armies have vanished, trade routes are silent, kings are begging for help that will never arrive. And then something even more terrifying happens. History itself stops speaking. This is not a legend. This is not a myth. This is the Bronze Age apocalypse, the greatest collapse civilization had ever faced. And once you understand how it happened, you will never look at civilization the same way again. More than 3,000 years ago, the Bronze Age world stood at its peak. This was not a primitive age. It was advanced, organized, and deeply connected. Egypt ruled the Nile with divine authority. The Hittite Empire controlled Anatolia with disciplined armies. Mycenae and Greece built massive stone citadels and warrior kingdoms. Mesopotamia recorded law, astronomy, medicine, and history on clay tablets. Kings called one another brother. Diplomats exchanged letters, gold, weapons, and royal marriages. Trade connected Africa, Asia, and Europe into a single living system. Copper flowed from Cyprus. Tin traveled from distant mountains. Gold came from Nubia. Grain moved through fertile river valleys. At the center of everything was bronze, the metal that powered tools, weapons, and empires. This world believed it had mastered order. It believed the system would last forever. That belief would prove fatal. The Bronze Age was powerful, but it was also fragile, dangerously fragile. Nothing stood alone. Weapons depended on long-distance trade. Armies depended on constant food supply. Cities depended on bureaucracy and records. Kings depended on loyalty, faith, and fear. Every part relied on another part working perfectly. For centuries, the system survived, but collapse does not arrive suddenly. It whispers first. The first signs were easy to ignore. Harvests became unpredictable. Some years, rain never came. Other years, floods destroyed fields instead of nourishing them. Earthquakes struck without warning. Massive walls cracked. Temples collapsed in seconds. Piracy spread across vital sea routes. Merchant ships disappeared. Ports slowly fell silent. At first, leaders believed these were temporary problems. They were not. They were warnings. Then came the voices of desperation. Centuries later, archaeologists uncovered clay tablets buried beneath ash. These tablets do not celebrate victory. They beg for survival. Kings pleaded with allies for grain. Governors warned of enemy ships approaching the coast. Cities requested soldiers that never arrived. One letter from the city of Ugarit reads like a final breath. Enemy ships had been sighted. The army was away. The city was undefended. No reply was ever found. Shortly after, Ugarit was burned to the ground. Its destruction was so complete that its voice vanished from history. When trade collapsed, power collapsed with it. Bronze required copper and tin. Tin was rare, and it traveled thousands of miles through fragile trade networks. When those networks failed, bronze production stopped. No bronze meant no weapons, no tools, no military strength. Armies weakened. Farmers struggled. Kings lost authority. The very technology that built empires became useless almost overnight. Civilization began to unravel. As cities weakened, people fled. Farmers abandoned their fields. Families carried whatever they could hold. Refugees poured into neighboring lands. Borders meant nothing anymore. Resources vanished faster than they could be replaced. Every displaced group created instability, Every instability sparked violence. Fear replaced law. Survival replaced loyalty. Civilization began tearing itself apart from the inside. In many cities, the collapse did not begin with invasion. It began with rebellion. Archaeological evidence shows palaces burned while surrounding houses remained untouched. This was not always an enemy. Sometimes it was the people themselves. When rulers failed to protect, when food ran out, when faith collapsed, authority died. And once authority died, there was nothing holding civilization together. Then came the movement of entire populations, not armies marching under banners, but desperate families on the move, villages emptied, roads filled with refugees, cities shut their gates in fear. The ancient world entered an age of migration, and migration brought conflict. And then they appeared, a name carved into stone, the Sea Peoples. No one knows exactly who they were. No one knows where they came from. They arrived by ship, not as small raiding parties, but as entire populations, men, women, children. They were not chasing conquest. They were fleeing collapse. Egyptian inscriptions describe them as unstoppable. Coastlines burned, ports were destroyed, armies failed. Even Pharaoh Ramesses III barely held them back. Egypt survived, but it was wounded forever. The Sea Peoples were not the cause of the apocalypse. They were its consequence. Then came the fires. One by one, the lights of the ancient world went out. Mycenae burned. Troy fell. Hattusa was abandoned. Ugarit vanished. Across the Mediterranean and Near East, cities that had stood for centuries collapsed in a single lifetime. Archaeologists later found thick layers of ash, broken weapons left where soldiers died, skeletons buried beneath collapsed walls. Some cities were never rebuilt. Others disappeared for centuries. This was not decline. This was annihilation. Food shortages spread across the land. Grain shipments stopped arriving. Fields went unharvested. People starved. And when hunger arrives, order dies first. Rebellions erupted. Palaces were looted. Kings lost control. People fled cities and hid in hills, caves, and forests. Anywhere survival seemed possible. The social structure built over centuries collapsed within a single generation. Nature delivered blow after blow. Mega-droughts lasted decades. Rivers dried. Crops failed year after year. Earthquakes shattered cities already weakened by famine and war. Storms destroyed ports and fleets. The land itself could no longer support empire. Nature did not negotiate. It exposed every weakness civilization had hidden. War made everything worse. Endless conflicts drained resources. Armies consumed food faster than it could be grown. Violence became the only language left. Each destroyed city created refugees. Each refugee wave created instability. Each instability ignited new wars. The collapse fed itself. There was no single enemy to defeat. No single disaster to survive. Everything was failing. Together. And then, silence. For generations, history stopped talking. No records, no inscriptions, no names of kings. Writing disappeared. Art vanished. Architecture shrank. Knowledge was lost. Humanity survived. But memory did not. This period would later be called the Dark Age. Not because people vanished, but because civilization forgot who it once was. Generations grew up among ruins without knowing who built them. Stones from fallen palaces were reused in huts. Legends replaced history. Heroes replaced kings. The past became myth, and myth faded into silence. Yet even in darkness, life endured. Slowly, painfully, new cultures rose. Iron replaced bronze. Smaller kingdoms formed. New political systems emerged. New beliefs took shape. The world was reborn, scarred, humbled, and forever changed. The Bronze Age never returned, and neither did the illusion of permanence. The Bronze Age apocalypse is not just ancient history. It is a warning written in ash, a reminder that complexity is fragile, that global systems can fail, that no civilization is guaranteed survival. The people of that world believed their cities were eternal. They were wrong. So ask yourself this: if the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world could collapse almost overnight, if empires stronger than anything before them could fall into silence, then what makes us believe our world is immune? Because history does not repeat itself, but it remembers, and it is always watching.